Will you go out with me? Just a week after meeting him, he bared his heart on the very first day. We had been spending time together, and his sudden declaration caught me off guard. I found myself saying yes. A year later, with no reason to part ways, he proposed. I promise to protect you for the rest of my life. Will you marry me? It was a touching promise, but looking back, I wonder if it was just a line he was used to delivering. My name is Melissa. I'm a 30-year-old office worker, and my fiancé, Sam, is a 32-year-old police officer. We met at a hobby event, thanks to an invitation from a high school friend. As I neared my 30s, marriage was on my mind, but I hadn't had any romantic prospects. I joined the event last year on a whim, and Sam, for some reason, seemed interested in me. We started dating, and a week later, he confessed his feelings over dinner. Sam, who comes from a long line of police officers, introduced me to a world I was unfamiliar with. My only exposure to law enforcement had been through TV dramas, which painted it as quite glamorous. Recently, Sam proposed, although his job sometimes kept him away. I felt I could build a future with him. He often complimented me, which made me happy, but some of his remarks stung. For example, he mentioned, "We don't have any high school graduates in our family," which felt like a subtle dig at my educational background. It's true that I only graduated high school, while Sam is a university graduate, so perhaps it was inevitable he would see things this way. My family consists solely of my mother, and my priority was to find a job and support her, rather than attend college. When I explained this to Sam, he seemed to understand. My parents divorced when I was young due to my father's debts, and my mother raised me on her own without any support. I didn't want to burden her with college expenses. Though I was encouraged to pursue a scholarship, I preferred to start working right away and support us. When I asked Sam if he had any debts, he laughed and assured me he was debt-free. Given my aversion to debt, rooted in my mother's struggles, I was relieved. Even scholarships felt like a form of debt to me, and I was determined not to borrow money for college. Relieved by Sam's reassurance, I agreed to marry him. Although I now live away from home, I stay in touch with my mother frequently. I've shared the news of our engagement with her, and she was overjoyed. While we haven't had the chance to introduce Sam to her due to his busy schedule, we're planning a meeting between both families soon. Before that family meeting, Sam asked me to visit his parents' house. Nervously, I accompanied him to his family home. His mother, who greeted us at the door, seemed reserved. After exchanging pleasantries, we were shown into the living room where his father was waiting. His father exuded an imposing presence, which made me a bit uncomfortable. Once we settled in, his father began recounting stories from his career as a police officer, going into lengthy detail about the cases he had solved. He insisted that only he could have cracked these cases, and all I could do was nod along. The tea my mother-in-law had prepared grew cold, while I struggled to find a moment to enjoy the sweets in front of me. Glancing at the clock, I was dismayed to see that only 20 minutes had passed. The time seemed to stretch endlessly. Sam, sitting beside me, seemed unfazed. He sipped his tea and munched on snacks, even requesting a second cup from his mother. I couldn't help but wonder if he was always this thoughtless or if he had become so accustomed to his father's monologues that he no longer considered my discomfort. Despite my attempts to tune out his father's lengthy monologue, nearly an hour of one-sided conversation left me feeling exhausted. When I finally reached for my tea, it was cold. My mother-in-law attempted to make a fresh pot, but Sam interrupted with, "Melissa likes her drinks lukewarm," which left me drinking the cold tea. While I do prefer my beverages lukewarm, I would have preferred to have enjoyed it before it turned cold. When Sam's father went out for a cigarette, the lingering smell of tobacco was a bit unpleasant, though I was grateful he smoked outside. Just as I was adjusting to this, my father-in-law returned with a stack of documents, which he spread out on the table. To my shock, they were about me. He matter-of-factly stated, "I had a background check done on you." His words left me feeling uneasy, as if I had done something wrong. As he reviewed the documents, he let out a heavy sigh. "Raised by a single parent and only a high school graduate," he said. "It wasn't news to me. I'd already shared this with Sam. I hoped he wouldn't let it affect our marriage plans, but my father-in-law's next words were disheartening. You barely passed." Barely? Was he judging me for coming from a single-parent home or for not having a college degree? I felt a pang of confusion, but then Sam turned to me and said, "Good job, Melissa. You passed." Relieved, I exhaled quietly. Sam then explained, "When you're a cop, you have to run a background check on whoever you're marrying." This was news to me. It's important to ensure there are no criminal connections or leaks of investigative information. While Sam's reasoning made sense, I wished he had informed me about the background check sooner. I didn't appreciate him presenting the results with that offhand comment about me barely passing. At least I passed though. With that settled, I was ready to wrap up the visit. Sam offered to drive me home, and I asked him to drop me off at my mom's place since she'd be back from work by the evening. I planned to visit her and chat about the day, especially since I had mentioned Sam's parents' house. As we drove, I said I was surprised by the background check. Maybe I should do one on you, Sam, just for fun. He laughed and replied, "Go ahead. You won't find anything." We continued chatting as we approached my parents' house. I sent my mom a message to let her know we'd be arriving soon. She warmly greeted us at the entrance of her apartment. Sam said a quick hello before driving off to find parking, as there was none available nearby. I went inside and recounted the events of the day to my mom. She was taken aback by the background check, but acknowledged that being a cop must come with its challenges. However, she wasn't fond of their methods. Then she asked, "That guy, he drives a fancy car and seems well off. Do cops really make that much money? He doesn't have any debt, does he?" I wasn't entirely sure about Sam's salary, but he seems to be among the higher ranks in the police force, so I assumed it was decent. My mom's concern about debt stemmed from her experience with my father, whose financial troubles contributed to their divorce. When I shared this with her, she simply said, "Ah, I see." A month later, I met my mom at the nearest station so we could head to a restaurant that Sam's family frequents for our families to meet. After a short bus ride, we arrived at a rather upscale restaurant. Sam and his parents were already there. Upon our arrival, my future father-in-law greeted us with a pointed comment. "Oh, we've been waiting. This must be your first time at a place like this, huh? It must have been tough getting here without a car." His tone was unmistakably condescending. I had something important to discuss, but as I tried to figure out the best way to address it, my future father-in-law started bragging once again. After enduring this for about 10 minutes, I mustered my courage and spoke up. "Excuse me," I said. My future father-in-law's expression immediately soured. "What is it? It's rude to interrupt when someone is speaking. Don't you have any manners?" I wanted to counter that he was the one lacking manners by droning on about uninteresting topics, but I swallowed my words and took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, but I need to reconsider this marriage." Sam looked taken aback and turned to me, clearly surprised. "I thought we were going to get married. Are you having second thoughts?" "Melissa, what do you mean?" Sam asked, visibly flustered. He glanced nervously between me and his father. "Is this about the background check my dad did?" I shook my head. "The background check itself isn't the issue." "Then it must be my dad's attitude." "I agree it's inappropriate. It's rude to talk about a background check like this, and I understand it must have been exhausting to listen to his bragging," Sam said, and I couldn't help but chuckle. "You get it, but why didn't you stand up for me before?" Sam seemed at a loss for words, while his father glared at him in silence. That's part of it, but not the main issue. Sam, you lied to me." "Lied? About dating 2 girls at once?" Sam, who had been flustered, froze for a moment. "But that's over now. I'm only focused on you, Melissa. Please believe me." Hearing this, I was momentarily stunned. Dating 2 girls at once. From what Sam was saying, he had been seeing 2 women, had one of them end the relationship, and then decided to propose to me. The realization that I had been unknowingly 2-timed was jarring. My father-in-law's glare remained fixed on Sam, while my mother-in-law looked on in shock. I couldn't even bring myself to face my own mother, who I was sure was fuming with anger. I reached into my bag and pulled out a document, handing it to Sam. Sam, looking bewildered, glanced at the document and asked, is this why we can't get married?" As I began to leave the restaurant with my mother, my father-in-law erupted in anger. "Wait a minute. What's going on? Are you mocking my son? We could sue you for canceling the engagement, but you wouldn't be able to pay for any damages. We agreed to this marriage despite your background because Sam cares for you. What's your problem? This is incredibly rude. Is this how you were raised?" His words ignited my anger, and I was about to respond when my mother intervened. "Excuse me, but this isn't a unilateral cancellation of the engagement. I would appreciate it if you stopped ridiculing my daughter." My mother's clear and assertive response took my father-in-law by surprise. Meanwhile, Sam opened the document I had given him, and my mother-in-law peered over his shoulder, her face draining of color. My father-in-law continued to shout, "What's this document? If you're marrying into our distinguished family, you should be able to handle a bit of 2-timing. If you have an issue, speak up." I had just discovered the two timing issue, but that wasn't the reason for my decision. Was he not listening? I had no intention of becoming part of a family that prides itself on such behavior. The other restaurant patrons had been staring for a while, and the embarrassment made me eager to leave, though I realized I needed to explain myself first. I spoke calmly but firmly. I thought it would be inappropriate to discuss this in front of everyone, so I was just going to hand over the document. Clearly, that's not sufficient. Backing me up, my mother added, "We've done some research and discovered something we simply can't ignore." Taking a deep breath, I began. The lie I referred to is about debt. Sam told me he had no debt, but it turns out he has been in debt multiple times. Whenever he faced financial trouble, he sought help from your father-in-law. He was also in debt during our relationship, which makes me reconsider the marriage. I hoped this revelation would finally prompt my father-in-law to quiet down and let us leave, but he turned it into a matter of pride, shouting, "Be quiet. If you're going to marry, you need to tolerate at least that much." "So I'm not getting married," I said with a sigh. Then, unexpectedly, my mother-in-law spoke up for the first time. "That's enough. I told you not to cover Sam's debts because I wanted him to break the habit. But you did it anyway, didn't you? And it's embarrassing to call ourselves a distinguished family with these issues. Melissa, your mother, and I sincerely apologize for the rudeness of my husband and son. I will contact you again at a later date." With that, my mother, my future mother-in-law, and I left the restaurant. On the way home, I asked my mother, "Mom, why did you suggest we investigate?" My mother chuckled and replied, "Maybe it's a woman's intuition. When I first saw Sam, after he drove me home, I had a nagging feeling. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I didn't want you to go through anything unpleasant, so I arranged the investigation. I hoped there'd be nothing to worry about." Turns out, her intuition was spot on. The background check results arrived the night before, and I had read them at the nearest station while waiting to meet my mom. I hadn't had time to cancel our dinner plans, so I had to go through with it. I wasn't ready to say I hated Sam just yet, but my father-in-law was another matter entirely. I was so determined not to marry Sam that I was willing to endure his father's presence. When I got home, Sam called, saying I plan to pay it back. It's not a big deal, right? Even if he intended to repay the money, I couldn't marry someone who casually takes on debt. On top of that, he had lied about being debt-free and had been seeing other women. That's when it became clear. I didn't want to marry this man at all. With that realization, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. "So let's break up." "Goodbye," I said, and hung up the phone. The next day, I received a call from an unknown number. It was my mother-in-law apologizing to me and my mom. Then she dropped a surprising revelation. She was getting a divorce. She also offered to introduce me to a lawyer if I wanted to claim damages for the broken engagement. Given Sam's lies and infidelity, I decided to pursue the claim. After some negotiations, my mother-in-law, who had evidence of her husband's unfaithfulness, managed to secure a substantial alimony settlement and ended her marriage. I also received a fair compensation from Sam for the broken engagement. News of Sam's behavior spread quickly, and one by one, his friends distanced themselves from him. According to my mother-in-law, the rumors about his infidelity were making it difficult for his arrogant father to show his face, and Sam's position at work was also at risk. Thanks to my mom's intuition and support, I was spared from marrying such a man. I'm incredibly grateful to her. We're even planning a vacation, just the two of us, sometime soon.